Okay, welcome to Chapter 22, Part 2. We are looking now at innate versus adaptive immunity. So, innate immunity prevents entry of potential harmful substances, responds non-specifically to a range of harmful substances. So, this is just kind of the barriers to getting in, and also when something does get in, those first things that attack. Okay, so like first line of defense, which is the skin and the barriers. Second line of defense, which is processes. This includes the granulocytes, the cells that will attack. They will cause an immune response and they will attack things. Neutrophils, especially, do the attacking the phagocytosis, but they do it non-specifically. They do it, without it being uh, specific, just without knowing what it's going after. Okay, this includes things like uh, messenger chemicals and noxious chemicals that are part of the inflammatory system, um, and that. So, um, yeah. So preventing entry, like I say, just barriers. Skin can be the number one thing that protects us from infections and getting invaded by pathogens. Mucous membranes also help by capturing bacteria and suppressing growth. The phagocytic cells, the neutrophils, macrophages, dendritic cells. Again, so neutrophils, macrophages destroy engulf particles. Respiratory burst produces reactive oxygen containing molecules that help destroy the microbes. So these ones are responsible for just basically destroying these microbes. Okay, neutrophils and macrophages. Dendritic cells destroy them and present the fragments to the surface of T lymphocytes. To talk about in a minute. It's part of the adaptive immunity. So you can see here's a dendritic cell versus a macrophage. Okay, so it takes it in and basically combines and takes something in, some kind of infectious agent. It might be a viral particle. It might be a like that, a bacteria, which this is a bacteria. So pro-inflammatory chemical secreting cells. Some cells, the basophils, and then there's other cells, mast cells. These ones are responsible for launching and controlling the inflammatory response. Now, inflammation is what we experience when we have an infection. So it's the pain, it's all the symptoms, pressure or whatever, uh, are caused by the chemicals that launch the inflammatory response. So the whole thing is inflammatory response. Okay. Chemotaxis chemicals also, they attract the immune cells. So all the other immune cells that are out there to attack, it's guiding the way to them. Histamine, a vasodilator, heparin, anticoagulant. So all these different things. You can see they're pro-inflammatory chemicals secreting cells, basophil and mast cells for one, for two. There are things that are called natural killer cells. These initiate apoptosis. Apoptosis is a natural cell death. It is a programmed cell death. The cell has the ability to basically shut itself down and kill itself, and it will do so if given the proper signal. And when it does that, that's called apoptosis. Versus cells dying because they were attacked or because they were starved of nutrients and oxygen. That's necrosis. All right, so this is apoptosis. They perform like a self-diagnosis, and then uh, the, they signal to the natural killer cells if they are infectious, if they have something, say if they have something living in them, or if they have a virus that's growing in them, that's taken over their cells. So these are detected by natural killer, and then they're killed by the natural killer. Okay, it does so by releasing chemicals that are going to degrade away the enzymes in the membrane and degrade away the membrane until it just kind of bursts and comes apart. There's eosinophils attack. These are responsible for some of the worms, actually. Worms are attacked by the eosinophils. They have enzymes that they release that are granulate and toxic substances. And the eosinophils are often also implicated in some kinds of autoimmune diseases where people have uh, ulceration. So, like gastric reflux disease is one. So, but they go after the parasites. So there you can see that. Talked about internal defenses of the cell. There's just proteins that by nature are antimicrobial. Interferons, they impede a viral spread. They kind of release to the cells around them and then tell those cells basically that they've been infected, and so the other cells respond by shutting down a lot of their activities and stuff like that. You can see there. There's also something called the complement system. This is a group of proteins that are excuse me, are in the plasma of the blood, and they kind of come together in different ways to cause different toxic effects on the cell, or to recruit immune cells to the to the infectious agent, whatever that be. So there's a classical pathway. Antibody attaches to foreign substance. Complement binds the antibody. It's sort of complement then is sort of flagging down. It's sort of causing a signal to the cells of the immune system that are going to come and attack. To kind of help the antibody in that sense, amplify the signal of the antibody. Um, it can bind to the cells themselves and cause damage to the cells being those that are the pathogens. Okay. Something called opsonization enhances likelihood of phagocytosis, so it binds and labels the cell, the infectious agent, whatever it is causing the disease. It helps to enhance inflammation, triggers the splitting of the target cell, so they form a membrane attack complex. And what this does is subunits of these complement will actually come together and make a great big hole. And it makes it this hole in the membrane through the cell wall of bacteria and other of the infectious agents that it comes across, fungi and protozoans and such. So it'll make a hole in their cells, and this kills it. Makes all the stuff flow out of it and whatnot. So, okay. Complement links. The complex is against erythrocytes. You can see here. So they're kind of targeting. They help to target old erythrocytes. So the immune system has that function too in the spleen. In the spleen, remember the red pulp is responsible in there for getting rid of old red blood cells, erythrocytes, and complement helps that process along too. So inflammation, immediate response to ward off unwanted substance, events of the inflammation, injured tissue, delivery of plasma proteins to site, clotting proteins, kinins, stimulate pain receptors, increase capillary permeability. Okay, so can cause heat, when you have infection, it gets kind of hot, that body part, or the whole body might get hot. Um, and this is part of the whole response here that is what we call inflammation. Okay, these things are all natural to happen. Fluid moves from the blood to the infected area because the cells have to get through, and it lets a lot of fluid out. This causes edema or swelling. Vasodilation occurs, brings more blood to the area. Um, so inflammation, here we go. It's got a cut. Oh, the cut. So again, the redness, the heat, swelling, the pain, these are all caused by the chemicals that get released when tissues get damaged, and widest response is launched by the uh, immune cells. And it says their nonspecific internal defense is fever. Fever is significant in two ways. One is that it causes the body to launch or to be stronger in its inflammatory response. So it sort of induces a higher inflammatory response. And it also creates a condition whereby the bacteria may not have as good a chance to grow. So for bacteria, the temperature is always important. And if you can raise someone's body temperature from 35 to 37 Celsius, it makes a difference in how the bacteria grow. Or maybe up to about 102 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay. So what are the benefits of fever? Again, just talking about some of those. Accelerate tissue repair. Um, a brain damage can occur at temperatures higher than about 106, as it says. Okay. Um, so let's get into adaptive immunity now. I'm going to talk about that for a little bit. This is specific lymphocyte responses to an antigen. This is what we call our immune response, or truly our immune response. There are two ways, two branches, two ways that adaptive immunity can manifest, and one is cell-mediated immunity, and the other is antibody or humoral immunity. So humoral immunity comes from antibodies just being produced and released into the blood and other tissues. And cell-mediated involves T lymphocytes, and these will actually have to go to the site of infection and go after the cells directly. All right, so here they are kind of together. So before we talk about functions and the workings of the adaptive immunity, we'll look at antigens. Antigens are a substance that binds a T lymphocyte or antibody. So an antigen basically causes an antibody or binds to an antibody, causes an antibody to be produced and binds to it. Like it says, they're usually protein or large polysaccharide molecule. So a couple of examples there. When these systems go awry and the body is actually making an antibody to something that is a self antigen, something that is self, part of the normal function of the body, then we get an autoimmune disease. Because antigens are supposed to be very specific to things that are outside the body. All right. Antigens, so antigenic determinant, also known as epitope. So this is what causes the response, just a part of the overall protein molecule. And as I said before in class too, how proteins work is based on, maybe I didn't say it there, but anyway, proteins work is based on the chemical environments that they create and also their shape, right? How they all fold together. Other terms: immunogen, antigen produce immune response, immunogenicity, able to cause a response. Haptens are something that are the antigen, but they can't act alone. They're something that has to bind something, and then that bound something can leave. So, for example, drugs. Okay, drugs can be we can get allergies, what we call allergies or sensitivities to drugs, when they bind to a protein in the body. So it's only the protein and drug complex that causes it. Drug doesn't by itself, and the protein doesn't, but together they can. Okay. Just mentioned autoimmune disorders. So I'm going to stop this now for chapter or for part 2, and then from there, finish. I don't know, maybe we'll see.